Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's a bright, sunny, beautiful morning in London, and wherever you are across the world, I hope you're having a great day too. Well, we have a packed show for you this morning, and so we've got to get straight on with Diana and Stephen today.
Morning all,
good morning. Good morning.
How's everybody? We're back.
It's such a busy day, but first of all, as always, we always give recognition to the Islam Channel and Muslims, and so we're very pleased, first of all, for Sajid Javid, who is the first Islamic cabinet minister for the British government. And what an honour that is. But he is also with the Home Office, and he's also working to try and stop Windrush from happening ever again. So what a wonderful situation for him to be in, and we're so pleased for him. And there's another quick Islamic story, is that the first Islamic church to be in the Highlands and the islands in Scotland has just been done after 45 years of 80 Muslims having nowhere to actually to work with and to actually preach and learn about their faith. So the first church is being built in the Hebrides at the moment, and it's being supported by the local community as well. So we welcome all this. Now, we talk about power standing.
Oh,
yes, we do.
Okay,
Here we go,
Stephen.
viewers. This apparently is the power stance.
What does that mean, Steve? What does that mean, Stephen?
You know,
Pray tell.
it looks like any second now he's going to go like that and fly through the sky, doesn't he? And all he's missing is the cape.
Yeah, really, but to be fair, this is something that they're focusing on now, and
Okay.
a lot of MPs and people in power apparently now have to have a certain stance, like a superhero. You know?
Here we go.
You know that stance to
Yeah.
show that I'm
Is
in
that-
control.
Right.
I've been doing it for years.
Oh, right.
It's
Okay.
been working, yeah.
I might have started it for the politicians, oh my goodness.
But that's a prime example of.
Right.
I wouldn't say it's a very good example, but it's an example of what
Yes.
they.
He only came into power yesterday as the...
and this
Absolutely.
year,
And already, power man
is already right.
is already, you know, taking the wind out of Windrush.
And I don't think a stance will actually show you can actually have control, but they want you to start this way and kind of lead by example and start as you mean to
Right.
go on.
And also, he came up with something yesterday against Diana Abbott, who is the shadow Home Secretary.
That's right,
He did,
yes.
which was the. Here we go, viewers, about the monopoly on anger.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So Labour Party, and she doesn't have the monopoly on anger anymore because he's just as angry.
That's right.
Right, basically his parents are from the Commonwealth also,
Yeah.
and they will be affected just like some of the Caribbean people.
Yeah, which
From
we'll
the
be
Windrush,
discussing
which we'll be
later.
discussing
Yeah.
later, viewers.
Yeah.
So you're going to be discussing that in a minute with
Yeah.
two very famous
two.
people within
Yes.
the Caribbean community.
Definitely.
And of course, you're very famous and Caribbean yourself as well. So
Yes.
it's going to be
It's a packed
it's going to be an
show.
interesting interview in a minute.
Yes.
And finally, you've got a piece on Kanye West.
Yes, I wanted to discuss this because he's causing a lot of madness right now in America, especially he's been off social media, he's been off the face of the earth for a couple of years through breakdowns and things like that. But now he's back. He's back with a bang.
What's he done?
Because now he's back promoting Donald Trump.
Oh no.
He's wearing the MAGA hat, which is Make America Great Again, and he's broadcasting Trump, supporting Trump, making music for Trump.
Is he going to come over with Trump in July?
Do you know, exactly.
This could be his cheerleader.
His new bestie.
This could be the cheerleader in Britain.
What's happened?
He needs a representative
Right.
from the Afro community
Okay.
To actually support
to
him.
actually
To
support
support
him,
him.
and he's got somebody who's not disrespect to Kanye West, but he's going through some things,
Yeah.
and right now they're
But
using
so is Donald Trump.
right.
Unfortunately, we have to hold it there because
Yeah, you need to continue the story.
people, the reality is we're just going to take a short break. Please stay with us right now.
Yes.
And then we're going to have quite an in-depth discussion on Windrush, the effects of Windrush, and how people want to see the Caribbean and African communities helped in the future. So we're just going to take a short break and be straight back.
Our Stance viewers.
Hello viewers, you must be wondering what's happened to Ian. He's going to be back in the second half. But we're going to be continuing on the Windrush, and I've got the lovely Ruth and Tony Warner. Welcome for coming back again, Tony. And we're going to talk about our memories about the Windrush generation, because obviously we are part of that. It affects us. Hello Ruth, hello Tony.
Hello.
So what are your memories on the Windrush and what's happening today? I mean, there's a lot. It's been a regular thing now, daily.
I think it's really interesting that it's like 2 weeks ago that we sat
Yes,
here.
it was.
That we sat here talking about the Windrush and talking about taking action and not sitting down and allowing this to take place. And I think it's like for the first time, I think in terms of the Afro-Caribbean community, we're coming together and taking action on this. Like talking to some of my friends, it's like almost like we've been really complacent. Like we just get on and do things, no matter what challenges we have. I mean, I grew up north, and in terms of where I grew up, small Afro-Caribbean community, but they stuck together and helped each other. And therefore that's that spirit of what life was like back in the Caribbean was brought over here. That community looking after each other. So that's like my memories in terms of what it was like in that community.
Okay. And Tony, and your memories? Because you're originally from Barbados, right?
Well, my mum is.
Right.
My dad's from St. Lucia, and they came in the late 50s, so they came here 10 years after the Windrush ship came in 1948, because that's where we get the name Windrush from the ship came in 1948.
That's right.
So my memories are that I grew up as a little kid here, and this was the only home that I would ever think about. So the idea that I would be deported back to some place I ain't been before is kind of quite weird. Although, of course, if you go back to the 70s, Enoch Powell was saying exactly that. He was saying all the people who come here from the Caribbean should be sent back to places they've not even been before, including their kids, This was one of their official kind of ideas, and it wasn't just him, as other political parties had the same idea to send people back. So the idea of deporting people isn't something new to British history, to the British government.
So how do your family feel about what's happening now? But obviously we've got a new Home Secretary now, but how do your family feel about all of this?
Well, I feel if that Home Secretary was not complaining about Windrush before just now, then why is he given that position? Because unless he was kind of campaigning against it prior to his being appointed there, how committed is he going to be to the actual ideals? And actually his father, if his father had been the victim of the same immigration policies that his son is in favour of, he would never go to the country. Because if he checks...
That's right, because it's from the Commonwealth as well.
Yeah.
So how do you see this happening? What's happening now?
I think what's happening now, as I said, the communities are coming together. They're like calling for prayer as well. So I think.
Yeah, you mentioned this earlier. Now, what exactly is that?
So it's like they're getting the communities together in different parts of London, and they're actually walking the streets. And they're walking the streets and saying this is a time for us to come together to pray, not just in terms of the Windrush, but also about all the violence. So as a community now, how do we want our legacy to be? So I think that because the Afro-Caribbean community and the Commonwealth are in the news now, that they're using this opportunity for good. So when they had the march the other day, there's no violence. People are actually kneeling down in the streets and praying.
Oh, did you hear this, Tony?
They were kneeling.
I have not actually heard this.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because the time when the media shares, it's always bad news that they share. So they won't share. If there was violence in this, they'd share it.
Oh, absolutely.
But because there's no violence, they won't share it out in social media. So some people who've been there have taken pictures of it, and you can actually see people on the ground praying. And then when they're going, they're just basically saying that we want a time for change, and the change begins with going back to the values. Within the Caribbean community, prayer, God was such an integral part, is an integral part. So they're going back to those roots and saying, let's put God back into our communities, and if he comes back into our communities in a tangible way, let's look for the change that can take
But
place.
they're also being selective as to what they cover, because when they talk about Windrush, they're not mentioning the fact that when the Windrush generation came here, they had to overcome no blacks, no dogs, no Irish.
Absolutely. I actually remember all of that myself.
So that's not part of the narrative. It seems to be kind of divorced from the experiences they had when they came here, that it's only a problem that they're being deported now as opposed to problems they had when they came to Britain in the first place.
Yes.
I know what you mean, because I have to say I was totally outraged by the whole thing, and the fact that they had to show evidence
And pay a lot of money too.
And pay lots of money. And enough is enough. But I have to say it has affected a lot of us, and like you say, because we could have been deported Obviously, I was born here,
I
like
was
yourselves,
born here, yes,
but there
yeah.
are a lot of young people today, obviously because their parents came over their parents' passport, they don't have British
Exactly.
citizenship.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Tony, I mean, I know you're from Black History.
Black History Walks.
Yeah. What exactly is all that about?
Well, we do guided history walks in 8 different parts of London to show people how far back the black history in this country goes. And if people are aware of the history, then no one will get deported, because if it wasn't for that generation from the Caribbean in the 1940s or the generation in the 1500s, then you wouldn't have a modern Britain as it is now. So we show people how that history is tied into banks, institutions, houses. We show people exactly how it kind of connects and where it connects as well.
Right, so when you say you actually take a group of people around London,
Yeah, we
is that
do
what you
have
do?
2-hour guided walks in Notting Hill, Elephant Castle, St Paul's, Trafalgar Square, St Paul, well, different places.
Right.
And we show people this history, which is literally in the streets and building architecture there.
So you mentioned earlier during the break that you're also doing something with Alex Pascal, who's a legend.
A legend.
Views. Do you want to tell our viewers who
And,
Alex Pascal
yeah,
is?
he links into the Windrush Generation because he came here at that time. He interviewed a lot of those guys who came on the ship, the Windrush, and he was also involved in the fight for civil rights when it came to education,
Right.
media, employment. He was active in a whole bunch of different campaigns, and he met Michael Jackson, Bob Marley, Diana Ross, a whole bunch of amazing people. And we're having a kind of an interactive lecture of him on the 11th of May at the BFI. So it's 2 hours of him giving his kind of recollections of the last
Fantastic.
50 years as one of the first black journalists at the BBC, and talking about how things have changed and how things have stayed the same at the same time.
Right. Do you know of Alex Pascal yourself?
No,
Black Londoners, man.
Yeah.
He was a legend.
You need to.
I need to learn it. Yes.
You do.
Yeah.
Because I have to say, and you're also, you've
Yeah.
been voted as well for
Oh yeah,
Black History Walks.
Condé Nast Luxury Travel Magazine has listed Black History Walks as one of the top 15 best walks in London this year, 2018.
I think before we leave, you need to tell our viewers how they could get
Yeah.
hold of you.
Yeah.
They can just check out blackhistorywalks.co.uk, or go to Black History Walks Facebook page, or find Black History Walks on Twitter, or just Google Black History Walks and then it'll come up.
Sure.
Okay.
And Ruth, your book, do you want to tell us a little bit about that before we end?
Okay, so my book, Say Yes to New Opportunities, I'm on a mission now to get this book into schools.
Good.
So,
Glad to hear.
Yeah, on a mission. I'm going to set up a GoFundMe because I know lots of schools can't afford in terms of getting the proper skills in schools that they need. So I'm going to start a campaign from today, just the same way as this campaign started with the Windrush. Let's start looking after the well-being of teachers and doing it in a practical way. So let's show our support for the teachers, that we value the work that they're doing, because if we don't have good teachers, then they're going to not have the students, like what students won't do as well as they can do in terms of their exams. So, yeah?
Okay, can
Yeah.
I ask you something else just before
Yeah.
we finish? Do you feel that Mr. Javid is the right person to take over this
No.
position? Oh, right. That was very definite.
His track record does not support what he's been put in to address. He was in favour of the same laws he's just been put in charge of kind of addressing, so how can he kind of be the right person?
What do you feel, Ruth?
As I say, in terms of politicians, you need to have someone that's been there. And
Right.
that's really, it's their core, not just a figurehead.
And that guy, wasn't he
Yeah.
in charge of the whole Grenfell thing as well? He was in charge
Yes.
of Grenfell, and those people still don't have homes.
They
Yeah.
still don't
So-
have homes,
So it's like the wrong,
Do you both have somebody in mind that you felt that should be in that position?
Dan Abbott, she'd be good.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Why do you say Diane Abbott? Because you
Because-
know how the public feel about Diane Abbott. I don't know what your views are on her, but
Well, on this
Well-
issue, she's been sterling, she's been exceptional, she's been
Yeah.
quite on the point, on the ball.
Yeah,
you agree with that?
yeah. Or Mr. Lammy.
Mr. Lammy?
Mr. Lammy,
Yeah, he's
David
been
Lammy, 'cause
quite proactive.
he's been very proactive. I mean, in the community work, especially in my church community, he's been very proactive in terms of getting people the help. Like one of the persons from my church who's caught up in all of this, he's helped her to get, the help and recognition. Like even the Home Office now are contacting them and saying, what can we do to actually help in tangible ways. So, yeah, so Mr. Lammy very much.
But
Yeah.
what can we do as a community? I'm talking about ordinary people like ourselves. What can we do? I mean, right now things are like, I'm glad about, they're doing this walk and everything,
Yes,
but
yeah.
what can we do as a community? How can we help here?
We can learn our history, that's very
Yes,
empowering,
yeah.
makes a big difference.
Learn our history,
Yes,
that's
yeah.
We
who
can
start
also
with.
get out and vote on the 3rd of May, I think it is, or we can vote in local
Yes,
elections and
yeah.
national elections,
Right.
and
Yeah.
just be active.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I want to thank both of you because it's that time again already for coming down. Ruth, I hope we'll see you again. And Tony, please come back and tell us how you get on with everything. Okay, viewers, we're now going to be, Ian's going to be coming back on with Kerry Thomas and Solangela Garbutt from the RC. and he'll tell you all about that. You're wondering what is RC? Watch this space. Stay watching. See you soon.
And we're back. It's just like magic this morning. One's going off, one's coming back on again. And now we're having a very important discussion about the Red Cross in Britain and especially in London. And we have the Vice President of the Red Cross in London, who is Solangela Garbutt. And we have Kerry Thomas, who is part of the fundraising section of Red Cross at the same time. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a very important week this week, isn't it, for Red Cross? First of all, tell me, why did you join Red Cross in the first place, Solangela?
Well, I am the Vice President of British Red Cross London area, and I was very keen in being involved with the Red Cross, not only because of the good work they do worldwide, we do, but because of their neutrality in helping anybody and everybody, regardless of their political view, religion, or skin color, sexual orientation. We're here to help anybody in crisis.
Which is great. And Kerry, how long have you been involved with Red Cross yourself?
So I started working for Red Cross about 2.5 years ago, and like Solangela, I think the range of services that the Red Cross offers was something that very much appealed to me, as well as this incredible stance of neutrality and impartiality and helping anybody, whatever crisis they're in, wherever they are, whatever lifestyle they have, we will support them in that.
And one of the things that we were discussing before we came on air was that, and sometimes it's probably a little known fact, that the Red Cross support wheelchairs in hospitals in Britain. Can you just tell us both a little bit about that?
Sure. We have been lending wheelchairs for over 100 years.
Really?
Since the First World War. And at the moment, I think we're helping about 100,000 people around the country with wheelchairs. And also, we have 50,000 units of mobility helping people across the UK.
I might need one of those myself soon.
Where people can actually collect their aid from our centres in the UK, or we can deliver them. A wheelchair means that a person can be able to work, to do small tasks at home, do the shopping, but most important is that person can feel independent.
And Kerry, do you think it's an important
I
role?
think it's hugely important. I think most people think that if you need a wheelchair, then the NHS provides it for you. And in a long-term situation, that is the case. But if you need a wheelchair in the short term, the NHS doesn't have an obligation to give that to you. They will provide you with crutches or a walking frame, but not a wheelchair. And so it is really important. We had an amazing story recently of a 13-year-old girl who was in the Manchester attacks and had really severe injuries and needed a wheelchair for a short term, and we were able to support her with that and just help her then to be able to get back into everyday life again, which is so important.
Are they very costly, just as a matter of interest? Is there a lot of cost in a wheelchair these days?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's something that we have to fundraise hard for, and we do offer people the option to make a donation for using a wheelchair, but we also want people to be able to have a wheelchair no matter what their financial situation is. So we are supported by grants specifically for that project.
I think it's important as well, just even at this stage, can you just spell out how can people make a donation, for example, for a wheelchair?
So people can donate to the Red Cross either online at www.redcross.org.uk, or they can go onto our Just Giving page, or they can send a cheque into us. And we generally ask that people donate just to our general funds, and then we will distribute the money as we see as it's most needed. But if people specifically want to donate to a wheelchair project, then they can specify that when they make their gift.
So fundraising is a major part of the organisation.
Yes,
and
it is.
I think in 2 or 3 days' time you actually launch Red Cross Week. So please tell us a little bit about Red Cross Week.
Yes, we do. The Red Cross Week is the biggest fundraising week for us.
Yeah.
And this year what we're doing is like harnessing the power of kindness.
Okay.
With the human kindness with human crisis. So this is what we thought. But Kerry here will know which events are going to be organising.
So Red Cross Week runs every year, and this year we're aiming to raise £1.2 million through Red Cross Week. And people can really get involved. So it's from the 6th of May, Red Cross Week starts. We would ask people who would like to get involved in any way. It could be shaking a bucket. We'll have bucket collections across the country. There's going to be abseils taking place. People in London could abseil down the Orbit.
Don't ask me to do that.
I said we're always looking for people.
to do it. You will raise another
I can rattle a bucket, but absolutely, no.
Red Cross tea parties will be happening across
I
the
can do a
country.
tea party.
Do a tea party. And it's all about, as Solangela said, it's all about the power of human kindness. How much difference does it make to our lives to show some kindness? And that can literally be standing holding a bucket for a couple of hours at your local train station, or it could be putting some money in a bucket when you see one.
And again, how can people approach you to be able to help?
So they can go to our website and specifically to redcross.org.uk/redcrossweek, or they can email getfundraising@redcross.org.uk.
And Ben Fogel, he's
Yes.
climbing a mountain for it. My goodness me.
Victoria Pendleton as well. Yep.
Absolutely, and I gather they've been training for months.
They have.
To be able to do this.
They have. So they're at Everest at the moment. They're attempting to reach the summit of Mount Everest. Amazing thing. But we would also say if people want to do something that's not quite such a big achievement, we have slightly scaled down versions, and people can sign up and take part in our trek at Mount Snowdon in June, or the Yorkshire Three Peaks in July.
So do you do events all the time?
Yes.
Red Cross Week is just really one focus facet.
Yes, yeah,
but
absolutely.
you're doing
We're doing that all the
and
time.
then
All the time.
great. And so how can people find out about these individual events across the year?
So if, again, go to the website, redcross.org.uk/events, or look at Red Cross events on Facebook or Twitter, or if you're somewhere that has a Red Cross shop, pop into your local shop, and they'll have details.
Great. What do you think are the core values of Red Cross?
Well, neutrality, independence.
Yeah.
And are you part of a global organisation? So I know there's American Red Cross and there's Red Crescent. So is Red Crescent part of Red Cross? I'm not quite sure how that actually works.
Absolutely. We are one organisation, but because of religion, we have to name it Red Crescent. But it's exactly the same humanitarian institution, which is the Red Cross.
And do you talk to each other all the time? Is there communications between all the... How many countries do you think you might be in?
190 countries.
190
yeah.
countries.
So we have the International Committee of the Red Cross Red Crescent, which is our kind of umbrella body, and then 190 countries have their own national society, which does operate independently, but with each country will have specific skills that they will offer to other countries as needed. And so there's very much, it's very much a community of organisations working together.
And part of it is what crisis management, presumably, as well, isn't it? So you will go into war zones and the like. Well, how does someone assess a risk for going into a war zone?
Well, we do have the Red Cross volunteers all over these 190 countries, and we try to alleviate the suffering on the face of any man-made emergency or natural disaster. So we're very proud to be one of the very first people to be where disasters are. So we have the communities in every country to be there as soon as possible to alleviate the suffering.
And I think the other thing that's really important is our emblem. The Red Cross and the Red Crescent are both protected by international humanitarian law, and so they are very much recognised in a conflict zone as being a sign of neutrality. And it's really our neutrality that enables us to work in places like Syria and Iraq, places where other organisations can't work because there's too many political implications.
So effectively, the fundraising you're doing this week is really going out to 190 countries.
No,
It's
it's
not.
for the British.
It's just beautiful British.
British Red Cross
Okay.
help British people in the UK.
And then we will
So that's
support
what we-
as needed overseas.
Okay.
But I think a lot of people don't realise that the majority of the money raised by the British Red Cross, unless it's a specific appeal for a crisis in another country, the majority does work in,
It
does
works in the
stay in the UK.
And I know one of the other things that you've launched this week is a crisis management situation
Yes.
that teaches train people, people in different areas how to deal with perhaps an attack
Yeah.
or something like that. Just tell us a little bit about that.
So yesterday we had a simulation exercise happening. We have them, yesterday's was quite a big one, but we do have them actually sort of maybe every year or so we'll have something where we will, as you say, train people for if an attack was to happen. So, obviously last year there were horrific attacks in London and across the country, and we need to know that people will be able to respond as quickly as possible. And yesterday we were doing that in partnership with Aviva, who are a really big supporter of the British Red Cross.
So would Red Cross, for example, have gone to say things like the Westminster tragedy?
Yeah. So we will be there, and our volunteers will be doing things on the ground in terms of it could be as simple as making somebody a cup of tea who's been traumatised, practical support as well.
Yeah.
And also, particularly after the Manchester attacks, one of the big things that we did was to go to local hospitals, and people who were well enough to be taken home from hospital but didn't have the support, we were able to do that so that then people who'd been injured in the attack could be treated in hospital.
Excellent.
So we were freeing up the
And
beds.
obviously first aid, you teach
Yes.
first aid, and you have, I think, on your Facebook and your YouTube sites, educational videos
And you
on
can download
first
the
aid.
app as well.
Download.
Yeah.
How important is that, do you think?
It's very, very important for everybody to learn first aid skills because you can save lives, not only in your own house, but also outside in an emergency. It can be extremely useful, and it's there for anybody to download the app.
And it's really
From
about the
Red Cross
confidence.
website, yes.
That was one of the big things that we've learned, that most people don't have the confidence to act in an emergency.
Yeah.
And so we're really, you can either do a full first aid training course with us and be certified, or you can do a basic skills course so that you would feel much more able to respond to somebody who's been hurt, and offer very simple steps for how to make a difference.
Okay. So finally, again, can we just reiterate, how do people get in touch with you all, and how can people support the Red Cross Week?
There is a lot of ways that people can help the Red Cross. I've been through volunteering to also helping with your skills, and of course donating money. That can help a lot. Anything else you want
And I would
to
say the
website,
website address, www.redcross.org.uk/redcrossweek, or email getfundraising@redcross.org.uk.
Ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
very
us.
much
so
for
much.
having us.
And as you'll probably appreciate, this is a very well-worthy organisation that we are talking about this morning. I hope you'll be able to support this really in any way that you can right across Britain, and because we go right across Europe and right across Africa, it gives you a little bit of a better understanding on the values, the core values of the Red Cross. So again, from Diana and Stephen and myself and the team who came in the morning, our other guests, can I say thank you so much again for watching our show. We will be back again next week on a slightly different time. I think on next Monday we're actually starting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it gives us the morning to actually rest and relax. So for now, thank you so much for watching, and as we always say, please remember, keep on smiling. It makes people wondering what you're smiling about. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.